When you think about the great names in basketball right now, you think of Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo. When you think about efficient scorers, you think Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. But what if I told you there was one name that you never heard of? He actually passed through the NBA during his time in Sacramento. And there's a large group of people that believe he's the best player walking the continent of Europe. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Sasha Vezenkov. I've personally seen him drop 20, 30, 40. in under 5 dribbles. Today's a video for the basketball nerds. I'm gonna put you on to a player that typically flies under the radar because he's not flashy. But when you watch the tape, he is one of the best scorers in the world. And if you already know who he is, let's just take a trip down memory lane. This is how Sasha Vezenkov became one of the best scorers outside the NBA. But before we start this video, I wanna say thank you guys for 2K. I'm super appreciative of the love that the channel's been getting. As I always say, we're a small channel, man. You guys are getting in on the ground stages. I see a lot of people saying, yo, this channel is gonna be big, and they see the potential in the channel, but I want to make sure that the content is on par with the following. So make sure you guys just smash that subscribe button for me, and we can continue to keep this thing rolling. So without further ado, let's get right back to the video. Alexander Vezenkov, better known as Sasha Vezenkov, was born in Nicosia, Cyprus, to Bulgarian parents and was raised in both Cyprus and Greece. He actually holds citizenship in all 3 nations, Bulgaria, Cyprus, and Greece, but he chooses to play for the Bulgarian national team, large in part due to him having 2 Bulgarian parents. Growing up, he was considered to be one of the best young players in Europe for his age. In the youth systems in Cyprus, he showed enough talent to be noticed by bigger clubs just in the neighboring country of Greece. And if you follow my channel, you know that this is something that typically happens overseas. When you're first starting out in basketball as a young overseas prospect, you grow within your regional team. You're playing with your friends coming up until you get to a point where you're clearly a standout. Then bigger clubs will come and poach you. And that's exactly what happened to Vezenkov. In 2009, at the age of 14, he moved to Greece and began playing with the youth club of Aris. Aris is one of the bigger clubs in Greece, but it's not one of the major 2 clubs that everybody first thinks of when they think of Greek basketball, like Olympiacos and Olympiacos. But I'd say it's in just that tier right under it. Just 2 years later, at the age of 16, he moved up to the men's senior team. In 2011, at the age of 16, he appeared in 10 games with an average of 2.5 minutes on the floor, and in the next season he appeared in 21 games, averaging 4 points and 2.5 rebounds. But after that 2013 season, he was widely recognized as one of the best young players in the Greek basketball league. And after that season, he actually committed to play basketball at the collegiate level in the States. On May 16, 2013, he committed to play at Xavier University in the Big East Conference, but he never made it to campus. Reasons only known by him. But if I had to take a guess at it, he kind of had the red carpet laid out for him back at Aris. You're in a good club, you're one of the best young players in the country, you're getting respect. At this time, you gotta remember, there's no NIL deals, you're not coming over for a big bag, you're pretty much coming over for an athletic scholarship. And that's something that we have to talk about right now, because a lot of these young players before NIL, coming from international leagues, there wasn't as much motivation to come over, because what do you get? Like, if you're not a surefire one and done prospect, or if you don't for sure want to end up working in the States, you're better off building your resume, building your career, and you don't even have to go to school when you play overseas basketball in Europe and these other countries. So the draw of them going to college just to get the 4-year degree, and I'm not minimizing a college degree in the States, but when you're an international student, the chances of you finding a job, like let's say you want to quit your basketball career, which why would you want to do that? The chances of you finding a job if you don't go to the NBA is so slim, because you got to get sponsored, you got to get this visa, you got to get that working papers. These guys didn't really value the college degree like American prospects did. So that decision to turn down playing at Xavier is not as crazy as it might seem today. But even more, there was actually a 3-year deal on the table for him to stay at Aris, which that probably swayed his mind in the long run. And that's where the basketball starts, and that's where I can start to tell you how he became the player he is. I think it really started at that season when he said, no, I'm not going to college, I'm going to stay and I'm going to develop my game in-house. And we're going to take a look at it. At Aris, Vezenkov is about 19 years old, and for me, going back and looking at the tape, it was quite shocking because he was so much more athletic back then and more thin, obviously, because he's a little bit younger. But it was nice to see him running the lanes and throwing it down. Those are things that you typically don't see. Now he only gets dunks in the half-court setting when he's right under the rim. But you can tell early on he was strictly a 4. He wasn't a 3-4 like he is now. And he was able to develop playing out of the pick and roll. not only just playing to score, but also making really high level reads on all of his rolls. He's figuring out when to pop, when to roll, when to short roll, when to deep roll, what to do after you roll, right? He's figuring out places where he can be effective on the court. On all his deep rolls, he knows to seal the smaller defender because he's going to have a mismatch. On the short rolls, he's under control when he gets the ball, so he's able to read the game, and a lot of times he makes high level passes out of the short roll. And obviously on pick and pops, he's a stretch forward that can hit it from deep. Vezenkov really got the chance to develop his career from the inside out. In his early years, he was a shooter, but he was really doing a lot of damage in the paint. He figured out how to position his body down low. When he's got mismatches or players that he can just put on his hip, he's the one that initiates contact. And he's not overly pushing and causing offensive fouls. He doesn't make a big deal out of his seals. It's real subtle, but the bump happens early and it's effective. He's strong enough to keep you on his back and keep you sealed. When he picked and pop on his jumpers, he doesn't really do the best job prepping before he shoots. However, his shot is so fast. He's got one of the quicker releases that I've seen in a long time. It's slow to get it to this shooting pocket. Right when you're here, right at your set point, it comes up a little bit slow, but from here to release, it's about as fast as anybody. And that allows him to be very deceptive beyond the arc. But overall, the flashes were there. Like I said, he didn't shoot that many threes, but he always shot them at a high clip. And that's a trend that will continue on throughout the rest of his career. In his last season at Aris, he led the league in total points scored with 469, and he was second in total rebounds. He played 37 games and averaged just under 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. In that 2015 season at Aris, he pretty much won every single award there was possible. Best young player, most improved, and league MVP. He finished off 2015 so hot, and he was still only 19 years old, that he originally planned to enter the 2015 NBA draft. But he later withdrew his name from consideration, and that's now the second time that happened, where he had the opportunity to play in the States, but he declined. And that's a very important nugget within the Vezenkov story. On July 31st, 2015, Vezenkov signed a 4-year deal with the Spanish ACB club FC Barcelona. Now, if you don't know Barcelona by now, then you probably should be following my page. I'll get you caught up with everything you need to know about overseas hoops. But if you do know Barcelona as a basketball club, it's a very serious club. They typically have a high budget for salaries, and it's a team that's constructed so well that they're always competitive within the EuroLeague. He ended up signing with Barcelona over clubs like Valencia and Olympiacos. And after his first season in Barcelona, he would again throw his name in the NBA draft consideration, 2016, when he was just 20 years old. So that's the third time that he decided to stay in Europe. Are you noticing a trend yet? But at Barcelona, with all the talent that he was surrounded by, his first few years playing ball there was filled with a lot of catch and shoot threes in the corner. He was able to work on that fast release that he has, because now with the step up in competition, there's even less time to get your shot off. Closeouts are coming a little bit quicker. But something else happened in the midst of him playing with all that great talent. He learned how to really be a glue guy. He learned how to be the role player, the guy that's not the number 1, number 2, or number 3 option on the team, but you get paid enough money to where you have to be effective, so you're trying to find your spots. You're trying to figure out, where can I score? And it was in Barcelona where he really started to develop that court awareness. And this is one of the things that sets Vezenkov apart from a lot of other high-level players, in my opinion, is he's never lost on the court. He always knows where the rim is, and he always is in position to score the basketball. We talked about it before. He knows when to roll. Sometimes it calls for him to slip. Sometimes it calls for him to set a hard screen and then roll. And after he rolls, he's so gifted at finding that opening in the defense. You don't roll to a premeditated spot. That's what a lot of bigs get messed up on now when they're going through their practice reps. They screen and then they roll to the same spot every time. But where you roll depends on where the defense is located. He also figured out how to get easy buckets. See, at Aris, he was such a great player. He was a big-time player within that system, and he was able to express himself the best because, quite frankly, he was the man. But now at Barcelona, as I mentioned before, he's finding other ways to be effective. Now he's scoring on putbacks, on offensive rebounds. Now he's always hanging out around the rim for quick alley-oops. Just everything that a player that doesn't really get the ball a lot needs to do in order to still score buckets. And it was here watching the Barcelona tape that I realized Vezenkov was always a hard lefty. And when I say hard lefty, I mean very rarely do you find players that are so dominant with their dominant hand that they never need to finish with the other hand. James Harden comes to mind. I've never seen James take a righty layup, I've never seen him take a right-handed floater. He doesn't use his right hand. He rarely dribbles with his right hand. As much as he handles the ball, you rarely see that. Tim Duncan was also like this. Timmy D is a guy that he was known for having such a great touch on his jump hooks, but you never really saw him take a jump hook with his left hand. Even in situations where he's going left and it's easiest for you to just go ahead and take a lefty layup or lefty hook, he'll always come back to the right hand. That's Timmy D. And he's one of the best power forwards of all time. Not saying that Vezenkov is in the same category as a scorer as James and Timmy D, but Vezenkov is in the same boat when it comes to he doesn't use that right hand. And it doesn't really limit him as much as you would expect. I was also like that as a player. I had no left hand. Everybody knew it, but I got away with it. I just want to throw that in there just so everybody's aware. Do with that what you need. But I'm in the combo too. Vezenkov's 4th year on the Barcelona deal was an optional year. And on June 29th, 2018, Barcelona decided to part ways with the young Vezenkov, leaving him without a club. His career was in limbo. He didn't know what the next move was. And that lasted all of 2 weeks. Because on July 12, 2018, he signed a 2-year deal with Olympiacos, coming back to Greece in the league where he once dominated. But not only is he coming back to the Greek league, Olympiacos now plays in the EuroLeague, which is the same competition that he just left with Barcelona. And on the first year of his Olympiacos deal, he pretty much was the same player, just getting more reps. He got a slight upgrade in his situation as far as minutes, shot opportunities, and just responsibility within the offense, but it wasn't much of an increase. In 2019, he started to get his feet wet in the EuroLeague competition, averaging 13 minutes a game, 7 points, and 2 rebounds. Those aren't super impressive numbers, but I'll tell you what is. He shot 63% from the field, 46% from the 3, and 80% from the free throw line. So you might say, in limited time, that's not that impressive because he didn't take that many shots. But those are numbers that would stand the test of time. The very next season, 2020 to 2021, he saw a big jump in his minutes, going from 354 minutes the previous year to 731 minutes. That's more than double. And he's essentially doing everything that he did before, now just with more volume. The percentages are carrying through. His three-pointers went from 61 attempts in 2020 to 135 attempts in 2021. Percentage-wise, they're well over 40% both years. And from 2, he went from 64 total attempts on the year to 120 total attempts. Again, more than doubling his totals. But it was that next season where he actually started to enter his prime. He would earn his spot as a starter on the team, and in February of 2022, he scored 18 points and grabbed 13 rebounds in the Greek Cup final against Olympiacos in one of the biggest derby games in European history, helping the club win its first title after 6 years. He was also named the EuroLeague February MVP and helped his team qualify for the EuroLeague Final Four. He finished the season averaging just under 14 points a game and 6 rebounds. And at the end of the season, he earned his spot on the All EuroLeague first team. He was recognized by his home country, Bulgaria, as he was named as the Bulgarian Sports Person of the Year award in 2022. And if we're going to call him entering his prime in 2022, then in 2023, he would enter the peak of what we know Vezenkov to be. This is the most important part of his career because this is where everything comes together, right? Where you take the young scoring prowess and learning how to play at Aris, and then you learn how to be the role player and get easy buckets, right? When you're playing in Barcelona and you're doing your early years at a big club like Olympiacos. Now, not only do you have the knowledge, not only do you have the IQ, which is also what sets him apart from other players, but you also have the responsibility because you're with the same coach and you're building. He's seeing you get better. He's seeing you have the big year. He's literally walking you through your prime. And I think in 23, you can definitively say that he was the best player in European basketball. Another big part of his success was the system that he was playing in. I mean, he fits so well within what Olympiacos tries to do that you can make the argument that he's a system player. In their offense, they prioritize constant movement. You got cuts, you got slips, you got ghost screens. There's so many options that players can do. And when everybody's thinking on the fly and everybody's making quick decisions, a guy like Vezenkov will excel because he's got the IQ and he's a fast thinker and he makes good decisions. He doesn't even need dribbles to score the basketball. Like, this is literally his offense. In that season, he was chosen as the EuroLeague MVP, and he also led led the league in scoring that year, winning the Alfonso Ford EuroLeague Top Scorers Trophy. In 40 games, he averaged just under 18 points, shooting 66% from the field, 38% from beyond the arc, and 88% from the free throw line. Like I said, those numbers that he was putting up in the early stages of his Barcelona career carried throughout the whole career. But after that season, he would finally take the leap of faith and go play ball in America. Finally, after 3 attempts failed, he said, you know what, it's time. I could imagine he felt like he did everything he needed to do within Europe after winning that elusive MVP trophy, after being the man definitively for 2 seasons straight. Maybe it's time to go get that bag in America now. On July 18th, 2023, Vezenkov signed a 3-year, $20 million deal with the Sacramento Kings. And to put that stint very simply in the best way that I can, if I had to sum it all up, I would say it just didn't work. There's a lot of reasons why a guy like Vezenkov will go to the NBA and it doesn't pan out. But I think the main reason why he didn't pan out with this team was, it's true that the Sacramento Kings needed a sniper. They needed shooting, but they also needed defense, right? And in the NBA, you can't just have one, in my opinion, especially at that forward position, because everything is interchangeable at the NBA level. A lot of guys like to switch 1 through 4. A lot of teams do this. And what's the term that everybody says in the NBA? They want a 3-and-D. They want a 3-and-D. Sasha Vezenkov is not a 3-and-D player. Just because you dominated in EuroLeague and you're one of the top players over there doesn't make it a lock that you're going to come over to the NBA and just have your way. Just look at what happened with Vezenkov and Micic, right? Those are 2 guys that were definitively at the top. They're tier 1, S-tier EuroLeague players. And then look at a guy like Yershon Yabusele, who wasn't necessarily an S-tier player. He's maybe tier 1 or tier 2, and he goes to the NBA and he fits right in. He's liked by multiple clubs, right? A lot of teams would take a chance, and obviously he just signed to the Knicks. Shout out to the Knicks. But overseas, back in Europe, maybe you'd look at Vezenkov and say he's better than Yabusele. Because at the end of the day, it's all about styles of play. Can you play American-style basketball? Can you play NBA-style basketball? If you had to define Vezenkov as a player, I'd say he's an NBA tweener. He can't really defend true threes because they're so fast and athletic. But also, he's a little bit small to be a 4. So he's too slow to be a 3. He's not strong enough to be a 4. And I think that kind of put him in no man's land, because who do you match him up against? 2 things bother me the most about his NBA stint. One, it was a shame that he was in the prime of his career, like literally at the peak of his powers, and he couldn't figure it out, because I think that maybe a world exists where he puts the pieces together and he's on the right team. The right team drafted him and they use him for everything that he's good for, because there are some offenses that prioritized constant movement. And that kind of brings me into the second thing is, nowadays, if he was drafted or if he came over to the NBA in today's league, even though it was just 3 years ago, 2 years ago, the league looks a lot different now. There's more teams that's following the Indiana Pacers mold. There's more teams following the OKC Thunder mold. Look at the Miami Heat. And just the timing, if it would have been a little bit different, I wonder if his career lasted a little bit longer in the NBA if that timing was now. To me, his best quality was his IQ. And when I think about his situation, I can't help but think about Jokic. Now, Jokic is in a completely different realm because Jokic's skill is at such a high level. However, he does have some shortcomings on the defensive end. But like I just said, his size, he's so strong, he's so big, he just takes up space. And that's part of the reason why he's so good. Vezenkov doesn't have that stature. He's got the IQ and skill, and the game slows down around him, and he's able to do some great things on offense. But also, he's not a guy that you can run your offense through like Jokic. So he doesn't become as important within the offense. He's just another piece in the offense. But I often wonder, would his career look different if he was 6'10", 6'11" power forward? Maybe it does. But after he finally takes that leap of faith and it turns out the way that it did, he decided, you know what, man, I tried the NBA thing. It didn't work. I'm going to get back overseas. And that's exactly what he did. On July 25th, one day after my birthday, 2024, Vezenkov returned to Olympiacos in the Greek Basket League. And I think it's important to note that a lot of players, after they try the NBA stint, international players, when they try the NBA stint and it doesn't really work out, they end up coming back and they have underwhelming careers or underwhelming seasons, because it's kind of like the the gas is taken out of the tank a little bit. Maybe they go over there with the high expectations on what it's going to be like. Maybe they think that it's going to be this and it's going to be that. And, the money comes and that doesn't make it any better, because the more money there is, the more you realize that this is just a business. And maybe the love of the game, the passion is just taken out of their soul a little bit. Or maybe it's just they go to the NBA and get fat, hypothetically, and just get comfortable. There's a great boxing quote that says, it's hard to get up and train every day when you're sleeping on satin sheets. When you got a maid waking you up with orange juice every morning, yeah, maybe you don't want to train as hard. But credit to Vezenkov, his play didn't dip. You can almost look at it like he lost a year of his peak. So he would have had every excuse in the world to dip, but it didn't happen. He kept at that high level. He returned right back to MVP form. But coming back from the NBA and getting right back to dominating in the EuroLeague, people started to notice. Not only were they noticing that he was getting a lot of buckets, 20-point games, 30-point games, but they were also noticing how he was getting the buckets. He began to go viral for his style of play. People were noticing that he's the master of getting easy baskets. He doesn't need to dribble the ball a lot of times in order to score, and it's quite remarkable when you actually think about it. He once had a game where he scored 45 points in the EuroLeague, his career high and the second most in EuroLeague history, and he only took 3 dribbles to get it off. And it's not like he's only taking 3-point catch and shoots. He's actually scoring within the flow of offenses. He finishes that year with 20 points per game, shooting 65% from 2, 38% from 3, and 89% from the free throw line. Once again, he's one of the more consistently efficient scorers that we have ever seen. And after the 24 season, he was named the EuroLeague playoff MVP. There's always going to be international players that feel more comfortable playing internationally. Very few have that crossover quality, and a lot of times it's not going to be just because of basketball. I think in Vezenkov's case, you cannot forget that he had the opportunity to go to play in America 3 times, and he turned it down. Maybe he's just one of those guys that doesn't feel as comfortable leaving his home. Because right now he's playing in Greece, he was born in Cyprus, and he's got parents from Bulgaria. All 3 of those countries are within one short plane ride. So he's got a home base where he is. It may not only be basketball, but the basketball is the reason why we're here. The basketball is the reason why this channel exists. And if you look at the basketball, not just in the NBA, but look at what he's put together as a career in Europe, you can tell that he's one of the best scorers in the world.